we'll get that going. Let me share my screen and we'll see if we get that technology working. I always got to ask, you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, that's always a good start. So, all right, getting ready for 2026. So what we do, this is part of our Moving Forward webinar series. We try to do one of these a month on a topic that is germane and relevant to our members. And as I mentioned, this is the time of year where we start to think about next year. And it also comes at a point in time when we've got enough, a fair amount of information about how we did in the rest of the year. With 10 months of operations under your belt and potentially financial data to go along with that. So let's see, our group, how big of a group do we have? I just want to check that. Well, let's go tell you what, real quick, we'll go through everybody and maybe just a real quick, because I think it's always good everyone knows who else is in attendance. And as we go through this presentation, I'll probably call on a couple of you for some questions, so you better pay attention. And like to make it a little bit more interactive, particularly on this topic, because I'd like to hear a little bit about what y'all may have been doing for planning. So let's start with with is it, I'm sorry if I get your pronunciation, Davina?
Davina.
Davina, I was close. Okay, sorry. Introduction and your business.
Okay. My name's Davina Cloney, and my business is Davina Lourdes Interior Design. I'm an interior designer. I do residential and boutique commercial interior design. Everything from new construction, full scope renovations through furnishing the interiors. I've been in business 11 years too.
Okay, great. How about Francisco? You're next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Francisco Mundaka, founder of the Mundaka Law Firm. I've been litigating now for 17 years, and what we specialize in is business practice and general counsel, which of course, leads to litigation at times, and the employment side of practice, advising businesses in employment matters, and then litigation defense if that's the need.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
James Willis.
Close enough. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am with Hammett Technologies. We're a locally based IT outsourcing firm. I've been with them since probably 2017. And in this emerging cybercrime arena, one of the practices that we have, of which there are many, is hardening up networks so that people don't have their data stolen or have their data locked out and with various types of spyware. We also do broadband connectivity for cameras and security cameras, point of sale. And I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but Microsoft is ending support for Windows 10 operating systems. And we're finding a lot of our clients need us to port the content of their Windows 10 server or computer over to Windows 11. So we're finding there's a demand for that going into 26. So protecting against cybercrime and getting Windows 10 to 11 migration completed without loss of data or disruption of business. That's what we do.
Okay. And I'm sorry, is the name of your company?
Hammett, Hammett,
Okay.
Tech, TECH.
All right, great. Thank you. Is it Anya McNeil?
Hi, yes, sorry about that. My name is Ayana McNeil, and I am the owner of Kiddo Kinetics. We are a sports and fitness enrichment program serving all of Central Maryland. We serve children ages 1 through 12, and our mission is to get children moving and enjoying fitness. We introduce up to 30 different sports. We partner with childcare programs as well as school districts to bring our fun and amazing programs to children wherever they are. Our coaches are certified and trained, and we bring all of the sports and related equipment.
Okay, great.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. How about Kathy Dixon? She
Hi there. I jumped on a few minutes late, so if you could remind me of the prompt, that would be great.
just real quick introduce yourself and your company.
Sure. My name is Kathy Dixon. I'm the founder of OES Communications. We're a messaging first marketing agency that supports small business foundations, clarify their message, of supporting them with ongoing monthly marketing. And we're really one team under one umbrella. So everything from web design, video production, photography, we really do it all, creating a more seamless experience for small business owners to complete their marketing goals throughout the year.
Okay, great. How about Mark? Mark next.
He messaged that he doesn't have audio.
No audio. Okay, so he's excused. Paige.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry for being off camera this morning. I'm running around with kids. Um, I am the owner of Page Capacity Builders. We are a social impact consulting and coaching firm. I'm based in Maryland, Severna Park, but I work across the country. And I focus on strategic facilitation and coaching work. So that's a little bit about us.
Okay, great. Karen.
Good morning. I'm Karen Adams Gilchrist with Providence of Maryland. We are an organization that supports people with disabilities, and we support them to live their best life, whatever that means for them. We've been in operation 65 years, and we support about 300 people in Anne Arundel County.
So, okay, great. Thank you. Great to be with you this morning. And how about Art, if you're still with us? Art.
Of course, I'm still with you. Art Ebersberger. I'm a consultant for architects and engineers, professional liability insurance, past board member of the chamber, and we deal with the malpractice coverage that architects and engineers deal with. The big thing for us is we keep in touch with firms that are building things and designing things that will be implemented across our region between Maryland, DC, Northern Virginia. So we have a pretty good feel for how economic growth is occurring.
Okay, great. Thank you for being with us this morning, Art. Did I miss anybody before we jump in here? I think I got everybody.
I didn't go.
All right, please go ahead.
Good
Sorry.
morning, Bridget McLaughlin. I am the owner of Dildinkers of Edgewater. We are going to be coming to Edgewater in 2026. So I'm new to the chamber and this is my first meeting.
Well,
Oh,
great.
I'm sorry. Dildinkers, if no one knows, is indoor pickleball.
We all knew that.
Okay.
Pickleball is all over the place. So, well, great. Well, welcome and good luck on getting things rocking and rolling for 2026.
Thank you.
So, all right, before we jump in, anybody else I miss? All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Basically, what we're going to do, let me just kind of go over what we'll cover today. Kind of talk about demystifying the planning process. A lot of us, you hear strategic planning, sometimes your eyes glaze over and it becomes a chore when it really should be kind of a core focus of your business and what you do, particularly as the business owner or the CEO. or somebody in charge of a division of your business. But where it really comes down to is really, we're going to try and demystify it and give you a simple way to go about doing this planning for next year. And it comes down to three questions. You know, where are you now? Where do you want to go? And how are you going to get there? And they seem like simple questions, but you need a process to kind of answer those questions and kind of develop a path forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you some tools to help you answer those questions. And they're going to be basically focusing on taking a look at your year in review. And this is why it's a good time to start putting together your plan for next year, because you've got 10 months of operations that you can look back on and kind of get a sense of what was good, bad, and ugly. You know, what worked, what didn't work, you know, what changing economic conditions happened, what might be coming down the pike. But before, and with that, you know where you are, but then you've got to ask yourself the next question: where do you want to go? Not just next year, but 3 years from now, not 10 years, but a 3-year window. Point being is the decisions you make on an annual basis are important and will lead you to that 3-year goal. But what is that 3-year picture? That's what we're going to do. We're going to actually paint a picture of 3 years, what your business is going to look like. And then we're going to get to the boots on the ground. And by the way, sorry, just anybody here online this morning, a veteran?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your service, and we certainly appreciate. What branch were you in?
Something called the Brown Water Navy. This was in country, running up and down the rivers in Vietnam.
So, okay, well, thank you for your service.
I wish I could accept your thanks, but I didn't have a choice.
Well, well, you went and you served, so that
I
is to
did.
be
I
recognized.
did.
So boots on the ground. We're going to talk about 90-day playbook. You know, how you go about getting stuff done. How do you move the needle on your 1-year goals to link to your 3-year vision? And so we'll talk a little bit about implementation and the next steps that we go there. So just demystifying the planning process. Like I said, this is something that sometimes people agonize over, or they really don't know how to start on it. So we're going to go through a couple steps here to try and make it pretty simple. And as our friend Benjamin Franklin, you know, famously said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. You need to kind of take the time to understand where you want to take your business, and it takes time and a process, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. What happens a lot of times in larger companies, they have lots of staff, and they have a whole strategic planning department in some cases, but not so much the case for small businesses. So I kind of want to share this look for you guys, how a corporate CEO might spend his time and how a small business owner might spend his time. And basically, as the head of your business, as a big corporate CEO or a small business owner, you've got 3 major focuses that you're doing. You're focusing, you're making decisions, and you're implementing. And that's how you spend your time. But you can kind of see the difference here in this graph. The CEO of a large corporation, they spend most of their time focusing on the future, planning where the business is going to go. That's because they have a lot of people they can delegate things to keep the business running. So they're not spending a lot of time on implementing. You know, they're spending most of their time focusing on where they want to go, the strategic aspect of the business development, partnerships, things of that nature. But then when we look on the other side for the small business owner, it's just the flip side. You know, they are running around. They're the CEO too of their business, but a lot of times they're the chief everything officer, and they've got their hands in everything. And so they're spending a lot of their day, you know, taking care of daily operations. So they're in the implementation part of the business, and it takes a lot of their time, and they struggle to find the time to focus. And so they don't have a solid plan to move forward. This is, has any of y'all read the book, The E-Myth? The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. And there's a couple of great, it's an easy read, it's a fun read. And he kind of presents a number of really interesting concepts. But one of the big takeaways that he has from that book, and you've probably heard this phrase, it's finding time to work on your business and not work in your business. And so that is kind of the focus here on what this graph shows, is that it's the struggle to find time to focus on the future. And so hopefully what we'll give you today is some tools that you're able to do that in a time efficient manner. So what's the problem with planning? You know, most businesses don't know how to put together a plan. You know, they think that planning may take too much time. The other thing, they think of the plan as a written document, when it's really not a written document. It's a process. It doesn't end when you create your goals. You've got to monitor them. You've got to implement them. You got to decide or see if you hit the goals or you didn't. But you also take time to ask, why didn't I hit the goal? And that gets us back to implementation. You need a system to implement your particular goals. And then a system of accountability. It's great to write these things down, but if you don't have a way to monitor and continue to look at how you're doing in terms of reaching your goal, that is a pretty big challenge. So let me just stop there for a minute, stop sharing, and ask this question. What do you guys do for planning? Does any of y'all want to share about how you might go about, or how you have created a plan for an upcoming year?
I have used the book Traction in the past.
Okay.
To do sort of quarterly 90-day sprints and then setting rocks. It works really well when you do it, as everything does. But as you mentioned, the plight of a small business owner is, getting stuck in the implementation a lot of the time, and pulling you away from decision making and strategy.
Great. That's a great good point. Another great book, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Anyone else do planning, or how have you gone about planning for the upcoming year?
Hi, this is Karen. We just finished in July our second 5-year strategic plan, and it was a little different than the traditional plan we've done in the past. This was more of a real-time strategy and looking at each year and when we start to operationalize it, really taking each year and figuring out from over the 5 years what we plan to do for each year. So we just finished that in July and are now starting to operationalize our 2026 year.
And is that something you did internally, or did you have work with an outside group to help you?
We worked with an outside group.
So, okay. So, all right, I'll see if we get one more before we move on. Anyone else want to share what they might have done for planning?
Yes, we engage in quarterly retreats with our team, and during those retreats, we incorporate the SWOT analysis to really kind of take a look at our year ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, I heard you talk a little bit. You mentioned Traction, which is another great planning tool or book to kind of focus on what small businesses can do to grow. And we're going to actually touch on a little bit of what they use in Traction to kind of go through this presentation. All right, again, so the process that we're going to look at, we're going to answer 3 basic questions. Where are you now? Where do you want to go? And how do you get there? So basically, it's a process. And so what we start with is that year in review, and kind of look at what you've done, where your business is now. How did the year go? How are sales? How are employees? So we'll take a look at a way that you can kind of systematically kind of get a sense of where you are now. Then basically we're going to paint a 3-year picture. In this sense, this sets the strategic direction for your business. And we use 3 years instead of, it used to be 10-year focus and so forth. And 5 years, things have shortened down. Things can change. The economy can change, and making these long-term decisions, you have to be very flexible. Who knew that there was going to be a pandemic, and we encountered all the changes that we changed? I mean, took everybody, it changed everything. So coming up with a 3-year picture is important, and that gives you, direction. But then in order to get to that 3-year picture, you've got to have a 1-year plan. And that becomes becoming more specific on certain steps that you want to achieve within that 1-year period. And then we get to the last part, which is the 90-day playbook. What are you going to do in the next 90 days or the next quarter to move the needle? Did you get closer to achieving the goal for that year? And that goal is going to move you closer to your 3-year picture. And again, we'll talk a little bit about how to develop the 90-day playbook and the steps that you go through, but also creating activities that are doable and how a process that you can use to get your whole team involved in this process. Because planning, I mean, you may be a solopreneur and you can use these steps to develop your own business, grow your business, but with a company that has a group, employees and maybe a leadership team, you want to involve your people because they're the ones who are going to help take ownership of whatever those activities are in your 90-day playbook. So here are the tools that we can use. Basically, we're going to use 3 documents that you can have that kind of are summary documents. There's a little bit of to do the plan, you don't need to take a whole day off, but it's a process of finding, probably 3 to 10 hours over a period of time with yourself and staff members to kind of go through these 3 documents, and we'll spend some time on each of them. But the idea behind this is to get it onto 1 page. Instead of a 50-page document, how can you simplify these things? Where are you now? Where do you want to go? And how do you get there? And that's what these 3 tools basically do. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on each to kind of work you through this. I will be sending out a workbook for you guys to use if you so choose, to kind of answer these questions and help you get to the point to complete these documents, to give you that 1-pager on each of these things. So that first question, where are you now? So 2025, we can use that as your building block. If you can look back in your rearview mirror and see how the year went. And so I think we'll probably spend the most time chatting about this, because getting a grasp on how your business is doing now will give you a good indication of what your 3-year vision could be. I mean, are you in a growth mode? Are you in a survival mode? How are certain economic trends affecting you? So that can help you craft where you want to go. And the tool that we're going to use is this. Is anyone ever familiar with something called the business canvas?
I'm not.
In a previous life, I used to teach entrepreneurship, and one of the tools that they used was something called a business canvas. And it was a document very similar to this, and it was a way of analyzing almost any business to understand its business model. And it gives you a good insight. It gives you the summary picture, and from that you can make some decisions about what the business is or how it goes. And a lot of times in the entrepreneurship classes, this is how these folks built their businesses, to answer these questions. This document has been modified to kind of focus on, to use that business canvas to go back and look at the year in review. And it's interesting because it works for any business, because if you break it down, a business really has 3 major component parts. Marketing and sales, how is that going for your business, no matter what you're doing? If you're a nonprofit or whatever, you have a service that you offer, and you need to get clients, customers, what have you. Operations, that's key. How's it going? Like that. So we'll break it down a little bit more in detail. And then the last piece is financial performance. And the important thing here is to understand it's not just about revenue and operations. The reason, you got to remember, the reason you're in business is what?
To make money.
To make money, to make a profit, not just generate revenue on the top line, but at the end of the year, with all the money left over, you have a profit. And again, corporations, they run on the stock market and so forth and so on, but they also generate retained earnings. They have money left over, which they invest back into their company. They go buy other companies, they give out bonuses or whatnot. However, for a small business, what you want to work to do, and you need to think about, what is your profit? So when we get to the point of developing a 3-year picture, how much money do you want to have at the end of the year in 3 years? What's your profit going to be? And with those funds, what you can do is you can reinvest back in your business. You can buy a new piece of equipment, get a new vehicle. You can give yourself a bonus. You can give your staff a bonus. But make your plans in such a way that you're not just talking about how to increase revenue and reduce costs, although that becomes important, monitoring costs. But what's your profit going to be? What's your profitability? So that's what we're going to look at. And when I send you the playbook, you can go through each section here, and there's a series of questions which we'll spend a little bit of time on to kind of look at. So on the marketing and sales aspect of it, when we start to look at the year in review, first thing you want to do is, it's a pretty basic question. Who's the customer? And who was your top customer? Do you get most of your business from one or two certain clients? Why do they buy from you? What is the value that your customer perceives from your product or service? And are there changes? Are there changes in the demographics of who your customers are? So that's kind of first thing to study, who your customer and clients are. The next thing to look at is your product mix or services that you offer. Is it still the same? Has it been the same for the whole year? Are there new products or services that your customers or your clients might be demanding? Are you looking at introducing a new product this year? And if you did, how did it go? And do you have anything that's not working? A lot of times, sometimes a business will get stuck offering a particular product, and it's just not doing well from a revenue or profit standpoint. Maybe that should be discontinued. So understanding your products and services is key. Marketing. How is your marketing? Where do your customers find you? Do you have a marketing budget? What was the marketing budget? Did you actually spend the marketing budget? What's going on with your social media and your website? Do you get customers from that? Are you tracking that data to get a sense of that? Are there new trends that are happening in marketing that you might want to consider? So these are the questions that you want to ask yourself about your business to get a sense of where you are and how it's going, from a marketing standpoint, customer acquisition. And then the last piece of the marketing and sales is actual sales itself. How do your sales compare to last year? Are you ahead or behind? Do you have multiple products that you sell? Which one is the most popular? Is your product mix changing? Are you selling more of one thing this year than last year? Why is a certain product that you sell being sold the most? Why is that most in demand? Is that your most profitable product? And how is your sales process? What % of sales are coming online? What sales are in person or in store? What's the online purchasing experience like? So this is a review of your sales process. So that's part of that. So that's your year in review to kind of look at your marketing and sales aspect of your business. Then we want to move on to the operations. And a couple things to look at is, what was good this year? What went well? What were some accomplishments that were significant, for your business? So kind of list them so you know what they are. And if it was an increase in sales, why? How did that happen? It's important to identify your success stories and take time to celebrate those successes too, with your folks. And when you see something that was a significant accomplishment, can you build on that? Was it a reason that there was more sales for a particular product or service? Is there a way, or you're getting more business from a certain geographic area? So what are your accomplishments? Then it's a matter of taking some time and look at your challenges. What were the 3 biggest challenges that you faced last year that kept your business from growing? And why did they happen? What was the cause of these challenges? And again, is it acquiring new customers, economic conditions, you couldn't find the right employees, those type of challenges that are out there. And what have you learned about those challenges? Are they going to continue when we move into the future? And what can you do about them? So again, identifying your accomplishments and challenges, and then it moves on to the next big part of your business, and this goes for most businesses, is people. Probably the most important asset that you have are your employees and your staff, no matter what kind of business you're in. So did you have enough people? How did it go? Did they perform the way that you had wanted them to? Did you hire any new people this year? What was your onboarding like? Do you need to add more people? So getting a sense of that. Do you need to get rid of some people? Sometimes we don't, it's hard sometimes to let people go, and sometimes there might be an employee that needs to go, and it's hard to say, but were you able to do that? Is that something you need to work on? So that's something to look at. Clearly your people and facilities and equipment. If there's a lot of work from home, but a lot of places still have offices, storefronts, manufacturing space. Do you own or lease? What is the cost to occupy your facilities and your equipment? Do you have equipment that you use to provide your product or service? You have trucks, cars, whatever. What's their condition? Did you spend a lot of money on repair? Do you need new equipment coming up for the future? And the last piece to look at is the use of technology. And this is one that's getting more and more attention, and it should be. Software always improves. A lot of us have CRM systems. Are you happy with your CRM system? Are there other options out there? How are you using technology in your business at this point in terms of a POS system and so forth? And the big one is AI. What is going on with AI in your business? And this is what I take a minute just to chat about, or to spend maybe a little extra time to look at, because the AI wave is going to impact all of us as consumers and as people in business and as business owners. And how we utilize that technology is going to be important. You may not want to be one of the first people to use it, but you also don't want to be one of the last people. So taking the time to understand how AI is affecting your industry is important. And that can be done by checking it, with your industry organization on a national basis, see what some of your competitors are doing, or stay tuned with the Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce and come back in December when we have our Moving Forward webinar. Is going to focus on AI and how it is affecting the operation of businesses today. So that'll be our December program. But again, take the time to analyze as you go back and review the year, your operations in these key areas. And then the last piece of the puzzle that kind of comes together is money. How much money did you make? What was your revenue in this year? And again, this is a great way to do this, because you have this data for the first 10 months of operation. How did it go this year? Do you have multiple products and services that you sell? What's your best seller? And understanding, where the money comes from. And this may be an issue too, that if you're not tracking this in your accounting system, that may be a change that you want to make for next year, is that you want to start to capture which revenue stream, how much is coming from each revenue stream. And then, did you have a goal, for this year? Have you set a financial goal that you wanted sales to be $500,000, $1 million, or whatever? And after 10 months, how are you doing? Again, you want to measure where you're at. We'll talk a little bit about a budget in a minute, but do you have a budget? You know, how did your actual operations compare to your budget? The budget is a big part of a plan because it kind of, you know, it's your best guess on how your business is going to perform financially. And what were the factors that influenced your growth or your decline? You know, did you get, I mean, we're in some pretty uncertain economic times currently with, you know, what's going on with the economy, particularly in our region with so much in terms of, you know, the cutback in government funding, all the layoffs that we've seen here and the reduction of force from the federal government. So it's going to have an impact and we don't know where that's going to go. So anyway, how you doing on your revenue side? And then the other piece is, what are your expenditures? You know, look at that, you know, your total expenditures, but break them down. Where do you spend most of your money? Is it people? Is it material? Is it facilities? You know, to understand, you know, your big cost centers to get a good handle on that. And, you know, were there any unexpected expenses? You know, did a piece of equipment go down? Did you need to hire new people because sales were up so high? You know, which could be a good thing. The other thing on expenses is inflation. You know, again, I mentioned the economic uncertainty, but it comes back to what are you doing about inflation? You know, has it impacted your costs? And keeping that in mind because it may come back to be a big part of what you have to look at for your 1-year plan for 2026. You know, it has inflation become kind of baked in to the economy, and that's something that we're going to have to focus on. So anyway, you got your revenue, you got your expenses, and then it gets to this piece. What's your year-to-date profit or loss? You know, how are you doing? Do you have money in the bank after you pay all the bills and pay yourself? What's left over? And again, if you haven't been focused on the profit, it's important that you do that because it's why we're in business. The other piece of the puzzle that you can do is when you look at your various revenue streams is try to identify what are your most profitable products or services. If you have multiple things that you sell or services that you offer, some might be, as they call them, a cash cow. It doesn't take a lot of effort to generate them. And so you want to potentially, maybe we do more of that. But how do you sell more of those things that have a high profit margin? But what you need to do is be able to go back and calculate your profit margin on each product or service so you kind of have a good sense of where the money's coming from. So that's basically your year in review. And this is what a document could look like. This is a kind of a sample of a t-shirt company. And just real quick, how they filled it out is they had their customers were high schools, community colleges, and small private universities. And they were valued for their quick turnaround and their quality. You know, the products and services, you know, the demand for their standard package was they sold a combination of hat and a t-shirt. You probably see that in any bookstore or whatever. So that was what their main thing was. They tried to sell hoodies. That wasn't going too well for them. They realized that logo socks were becoming popular. That was something that wasn't on their radar screen. So in terms of their marketing, you know, they went through the things. They're not having any paid advertising. What they realize is their marketing is all referrals based on repeat business. And their sales are lagging, as they say over here. Their year-to-date sales are about the same as it was last year. Community colleges are their best customers. They're getting 50% of their business from community colleges. And they're having an issue. They've getting a lot of calls in advance for their fall orders. So this is their, you know, they did their review here, and then their challenges, you know, are kind of listed over here. Sales are flat, losing high school clients, cost of goods increasing. You know, people, you know, they get, you know, a good thing to add on if you do this with the year in review, you list who your people are, you know, how many positions do you have? What are they doing? So that's a good piece of it. They looked at their technology. They'd like to upgrade their CRM system. They've been taking care of their IT in-house. They were thinking about outsourcing it. They had some good accomplishments. They had a 20% increase of orders from XYZ school. They found a lower cost supplier. But anyway, you get the idea. It kind of gives you this summary of how they can kind of look at the business. And again, they're keeping score down here with their finances here. What their total revenue was for the year, their costs, and their profits. And they kind of make an analysis of how, why are operating expenses going up, tariffs starting to push prices up. So again, this is a real quick sample of what a year in review could look like, that 1 year or that 1-page summary. And again, it takes a lot of doing to get it to this point. But again, that's where you want to invest the time to go back and look at the year. And the workbook that I'll send you will have a series of these questions that you can kind of work, go through with that. All right, so that was question 1. Question 2, where do you want to go? And we needed some help from a great business philosopher, Yogi Berra. I don't know if anybody remembers Yogi Berra, but he was a catcher on the New York Yankees in the 50s and 60s. But he was most famous for malapropisms. He would say things like, 90% of baseball is half mental, things like that. And nobody goes to that restaurant anymore because it's too crowded. But anyway, he said, if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. And the point being is you need a plan. And that's sort of what we're going to focus on now is your 3-year plan. And basically, you're an artist. You're painting a picture of where your business wants to go. And, what does that look like? Basically, it's this pretty simple document, kind of look at what your revenues want to be, your profits, what key statistics you want to, have in 3 years, and then a list of items here. And involve your staff or other people to help put this vision or paint this picture with you. I think that's an important aspect of this. And again, it comes in a couple of points here is, again, what are your revenues going to be in 3 years? And, do you want a, 30% increase in your revenues? You think through how it went this year, and then how much can you increase them each year? Is there a new product that you want to launch in 3 years, within 3 years? And is that going to boost your revenue up 10, 20, 30%? But have a number, your goal. Similarly with profit, how much money do you want to make? What's your profit margin? What's a good profit margin for your industry? What should you be making as a profit? So set those numbers and then establish some key metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, things that you can measure. And again, these are measurable things. How many clients do you have? How many units did you sell? Do you want to increase the number of your employees? Do you need more locations for your stores? So whatever those metrics might be. And then the other thing is, other aspects of your business, what's your role? What are you doing in 3 years? What do you want your business to be like? What do you want to be doing in your business? Do you have a leadership team? In 3 years, do you want to develop your staff so they can be more positioned to run the business? New locations, perhaps. Do you need to be more involved in the community? Do you need to be more involved in the Chamber of Commerce, for instance? Sometimes people want to think about, what's your exit strategy? Do you want to sell the business? Sell the business? I never thought of that. Well, what if you did? What would that look like? So something to think about. Or do you want to roll out a new product or service in the next 3 years? So that's what you would do to paint your 3-year picture. And again, this is what an example of what this was a software company, and basically their deal was their 3-year picture. They want to have revenue of $5 million, have a profit of $700,000, 250 subscribers, 15 full-time employees. And you can see the things that they listed here. Again, these don't become overly specific because that's what we'll do in the 1-year plan or the goals. He wants to have a strong organizational system, ongoing marketing activities in place, leadership team managing the operations more fully. And again, he included in here is CEO has a better work-life balance. That's the other thing you want to manage here as a small business owner or operator. You got a lot of stuff going on. So you want to look at how you can manage yourself so you don't get burnt out. All right. And question 3 to kind of bring this home is, how will you get there? So a goal without a plan is just a dream. So you've got to kind of take this and bring it into something tangible to take that 3-year picture and make it happen. And we'll do that through a playbook. And this is something that's similar to what you had seen in this other book, Traction, by the guy, Gino Wickman wrote this book. And this is a process that's been used by a lot of businesses, and it's very effective. He's developed the 1-year goals, and it comes in 2 parts. You develop your 1-year goals and then your 90-day objectives and key results. And breaking that down a little bit, your 1-year goal or your 1-year plan, your goals are, again, what's your revenue, what's your profit, and what are some key statistics, KPIs that you want to track. So your year in review is a great place to start to help you build that. Keep an eye on your 3-year plan when you create your particular goals for the year. And the next piece is build a budget, because I think that is a key to all of this. And in the workbook, it explains a little bit more in detail how to create a budget. I would highly recommend that you do it on a monthly basis. And you can do it pretty simply by starting with your this year's results. Run a P&L by month of 2025 by category, and that's your base budget, that your starting point. And then you can take that and add your revenue to it. Look at your revenue streams, how you want to add or grow them, what your expenses are going to be, employees and the like. But that's a good place to start. I don't want to get into too much detail there, but it is important to build that budget. And then when you create your goals, you want them to be specific. And again, you've probably heard this concept before. You want SMART goals, something that's specific, measurable, attainable, and trackable. Not that, we want to increase sales. Okay, that's good. How about we want to increase sales by 15% in selling product number 1? And then the last thing is you don't need to have a billion, 20 goals, no more than 10, and less is more. So if you can have just few specific goals that are, again, to be accomplished by the whole year is preferable. And then the last piece is the 90-day playbook. And this is basically looking at those 1-year goals and coming up with action plans. What do I have to do to implement those particular goals? And those aspects are the objectives and key results. And again, the goal is to be done by the end of the year. So in this particular quarter, you don't have to do it all. Taking out bite-sized pieces, little bits to get you going down the road, to get you towards what that goal is going to be. The other big piece to this is implementation meetings. Your 90 days goals, don't wait 90 days to meet and see how we're doing. You should have ongoing meetings to look at these goals, keep these goals or the objectives, the 90-day objectives and key results in front of you. So this is, what you're working on. And every 90 days, you review them. You either check them off, yep, they were complete, or we didn't quite get it done. Let's keep it on there. But review, add new goals, but don't overdo it. You want to keep it pretty clean and manageable. And again, this is what a playbook could look like. This is a company, they had revenues of 2.4 million. They wanted profit of $400,000 in 2024. They wanted to start selling a new product and with a goal of 250,000 in sales. And you can see what the rest of the things are. But what they set up for their 90-day objectives were pretty specific tasks. Fine-tune the revenue projection by segment and region to cover the West and North Central regions. Hire 1 new sales rep. That's going to help them get to their revenue goals, right? They're hiring people, so they're going to develop an org chart. They didn't have an org chart, but they thought that would be valuable. They need a business development activities, maintain focus on entering a new market, and partner with this particular company. So they had some pretty specific goals that they laid out there. So again, it's a matter of taking these things and trying to boil them down into these 3 one-page documents that are pretty simple. And again, they focus on those 3 basic questions. Where are you now? Where do you want to go? And how do you get there? And again, these things can help you demystify the planning process and hopefully come up with something that's pretty doable and can be implemented. And that takes us kind of to wrap this up with talking about implementation and how you would go about doing that. I think is one, you've got to maintain your focus. And it's small steps will get big results. So you've got to stick with it, stick with your playbook, invest the time to create that 90-day document so you know what you're working on. You want to create accountability. You can't do this all yourself. You've got to involve your whole team to do this. And this is why it works for a small business. Again, because it's not corporate America and you've got 5,000 employees scattered around the country. You might have 5 to 20 people, whatever, located here in Anne Arundel, or some of them, working remotely. But get them involved so they understand, one, what your goals are, and then the plan, the objectives for each quarter. And that comes back to updating the playbook each quarter. And it might be a matter that you set up an implementation team. You get a group of people, your leadership team, some folks call it, and they focus on making sure that you're having progress moving forward. And just to wrap it up, next steps, what we'll do is I'll send out the planning workbook so you can kind of walk through this. I think we'll get a copy of the recording. I would encourage you to set aside some time with the workbook to think about those 3 questions. And it's a Word document, so you can literally type right in it. And if you'd like to just answer the questions and build that 1-year review, and then go through the process of developing your 3-year vision. Definitely create a budget. If you haven't created a budget in the past, I would highly recommend it because it's going to give you the focus that you need. So that kind of wraps up the presentation. I think we've got a couple minutes left for some reactions or questions. So let me shut up and throw it over to you guys. Any questions? All right, let me ask a question then. Who makes a budget? Does any of you guys make a budget for each year as you start the new year?
No, I don't.
No,
The owner of
okay.
the company does.
Okay. Anybody else make a budget?
Can I ask a question? So when I do my taxes, I essentially have, on my P&L, I have all the expenses broken down. Does that count as a budget? Because I sort of have an idea of what I spend in each category.
It's P&L is back. It looks how you did, how it's like a report card almost. The budget is where you want to go. It's kind of, if you take your P&L from this year and you can lay it out by month to understand where the money comes from, when you get it, because a lot of times a business might be seasonal. They're busy in the summer or they're slow in the summer. A lot of businesses spike in the fourth quarter. But understanding when you get the money, where the money comes from, similarly on the expense side. But that gives you a good understanding of the ebb and flow of your business. That's why it's important to spend some time to build your budget, because then again, when you set your revenue goals, what is it you want to sell more of, or sell less of, something that's not profitable. So it's a good place to start, with your P&L.
Right. Thanks.
So. All right, any other questions or thoughts before we conclude? All right, well, thank you for spending some time with us. And again, I'd encourage you to spend a little time looking at the documents and thinking about next year, because this is your opportunity to build and make a breakthrough year for yourself and your business next year. And as I mentioned, next in December 3rd, I think is our next, December 9th rather, is our next webinar, and we're going to focus on AI. So stay tuned for that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Enjoy some nice fall weather.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you
Good
soon.
session. Good
All right.
session.
Take care.